forgive you.
Hey, Jackson.
Hey, Rozzy.
Welcome back to another episode of
We forgive you. We
do?
forgive you.
This makes me want to just go out, you know?
I
listening to
love the new song from our
too.
good friend V. Johnson. He, for anyone out there interested in fun, sexy music, dropped a 4-track EP this week under the artist name of V, just the letter. And the EP is Start Volume 1. So as soon as you finish listening to this,
How can one find it?
go
Where do we
listen
find
to
it?
that. He is on Apple Music, on Spotify, and we will post a link to it somehow on Instagram.
Yeah, we can, we'll direct people to it on our page.
And then if you follow me on Twitter at Fast and Furious, I tweeted a link to it yesterday. Anyway, so check it out because he does more than just fun little theme songs for us.
He's talented. We already knew that.
Right. I mean, like our theme song is not like a full representation of his talent because he, sort of threw it together for us.
But also among our talented friends, we want to give a shout out and a thank you, as always, to Karen Lee for this week's incredible artwork.
Absolutely.
As well as Sarah Falkman for our incredible branding, design,
Logo. Love it all. Cute pink color.
I know, millennial pink, keeping it with us. So Jackson, we are a week into Lent.
We are.
How's your Lenten promise?
I promised myself that I would go to the gym every day of Lent, and I've gone one day of Lent.
Okay.
No, that's a lie. I went the day before Lent started. Honestly, my cold won't go away, which I think everyone who's listening to this can probably count back the number of weeks I've said my cold won't go away and realize that I probably should go to a doctor.
But it's almost at this point.
Oh! French press.
French press time. Press the press. Maybe we need a song for that, or it's like
press that press.
There it is. We can just play it.
This is a very enjoyable press down. Okay, we're done.
Cool, we're done. Okay, so that's all right.
Yeah,
You're trying.
I'm trying. I keep trying to sleep without NyQuil, and then I lay there for 30 minutes, feeling like I have to cough and I have to get up and take it. And then I'm like, that was a waste of 30 minutes. I should just take the drugs.
So you just have the common cold that's just lingering.
Yeah.
Also, with all the weather changing back and forth in New York, it's really hard for your body to know
what to do. As
a person who's not a doctor, that's what I can tell you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
For that advice. How is your Lenten promise?
Mine has been, I've also not been feeling well. So it's been I've really been pushing it with my alarm, as in hitting it, and then be like, oh my God, if I don't get up now, I'm going to miss the 2 trains that I can take to get to work on time. So it hasn't been, but in an effort to make up for that, I've been I haven't been drinking, which I know I'm taking something away, devoiding myself, but it's like if I can't do one, then I'll try to add to my life by okay, I'm not feeling well, I'm not going to drink. Right. I'm going to focus on me.
Are you going to not drink for all of Lent?
Well, Sam's birthday will have been yesterday when this airs, and I want to have a glass of champagne or something.
Yeah, I feel like.
And then my birthday, I'm not
Right, it's not.
No, it's not. It's just a way of being I'm trying to better myself. I want to not.
Your birthday does fall inside of Lent.
It does.
So that's definitely going to be a challenge if you wanted to have.
Oh no, I'm not. I'm going
birthday.
to.
Okay.
No, I'm not. No.
No, just take that one off the table.
No, because 40 days. There are some, I'd say, New Age Catholics.
I think it's 40 days and 35 nights.
It's minus the Sundays. They say that if people are I can cheat on my Lenten promise on Sunday.
Right, it's your diet. It's your cheat day.
Yeah,
but it's Lent. When Jesus was wandering the desert, he took cheat days.
He was like, you know what? Get me to Chili's right now. It's Sunday. I want Chili's.
I want a margarita and some French fries. Mm-hmm. Well, in the vein of Jesus, we're here to offer forgiveness.
Yeah.
And
that was a real quick spin.
Thank you so much. I didn't know where I was going to go with it, and I found a little pivot. So this week we're going to talk about, honestly, one of my childhood heroes.
I think one of mine as well. And I still, just to preface this, and not give away who the person was. When you brought this person up, I was like, whoa. Because, and this is the point of the podcast, where it's like these people that we love, we have blinders up for certain things, or we're like, that's whatever.
Right. I think I honestly was like soul searching via text to you last night, being like, who do I talk about? Who would I talk about? And my first instinct was, I'll talk about Johnny Depp because I don't like him.
But that's the thing, you've never liked him.
Right.
Like, I liked Johnny Depp. I'm sorry, I liked Captain Jack Sparrow. I loved Edward Scissorhands. And lock me up.
And throw away the key, officer. Yeah, I never saw it for him. And so I was like, well, that's not interesting. I'm not like uncovering anything. I'm not going to end up at forgiveness because like I didn't start anywhere positive. Right. So I can't like come full circle for him. But someone that has been sort of connected to him in the news is who we're going to talk about today. So without further ado, one of the richest women in the British Kingdom.
Following Her Majesty the Queen.
QE2, Miss JK Rowling.
I can't believe we're doing JK Rowling. I can't. But this is also maybe a reason why we have to, because I'm like not ready to. Like Jackson sent me the articles and I was like, glanced over them and I was like, I'm going to break this down with you and I want to talk this out with you because all these points are valid.
Yeah.
And it's different because so she's an author.
Right. She is an author and also at this point like a very screenwriter, yes, and philanthropist and also a social media like star also. Her Twitter is like deeply followed and renowned and
she goes after people.
And, you know, politically has supported very progressive candidates, or at least like the Labour Party in the UK.
Right.
Very anti-Trump and so like support of Corbyn, support her lack of support for Donald Trump, obviously. And I think my frustration with her right now is I think how her politics aren't really reflected in the work she's creating.
Okay.
And this is solely about the Wizarding World of Harry Potter, because I've never read The Casual Vacancy nor any of the Cormoran Strike novels. So I'm not speaking to those, but I am speaking to really all parts of the Wizarding World, including Pottermore and the new Fantastic Beasts movies. So if anyone listening hasn't seen Fantastic Beasts and where to find them,
well, you're in for a spoiler.
Spoiler alert. At the end of the movie, we're following this whole time what is sort of like a US version of an R. So like a dark wizard hunter. Right. Played by my one true crush, Colin Farrell.
Which we will discuss in a later episode with our forever crushes.
My forever crush, who looks also incredible in this movie. He
does like
so good. Anyway, and like at the end of the movie, Colin Farrell is basically unmasked, and we find out that he's Grindelwald, who's sort of like the original dark wizard in the Harry Potter universe,
and he's
right?
The counterpart to Dumbledore, right?
Right, he's Dumbledore's
like foil character
that we learn about in the Deathly Hallows.
Right.
He's like Dumbledore's best friend turned nemesis.
It's like in X-Men.
Right, he is the Magneto to Dumbledore's Charles Xavier,
Dr.
Professor X. And also much like X-Men, Dumbledore's story suddenly becomes just one giant gay allegory.
Yeah.
And in these Fantastic Beasts movies, we are finally getting to see both a younger Dumbledore and also Grindelwald for the first time. That's not like in a quick flashback like we saw in the Deathly Hallows movies. And the big reveal, the big surprise with Grindelwald is that when beautiful, sexy Colin Farrell gets unmasked, he becomes Johnny Depp. And it's like a true gasp moment.
I was like,
I avoided the spoilers. Yeah.
I watched it on a plane. I was like, huh.
It's like you don't expect it, but you also like don't want it. It's like also Harry Potter movies haven't really employed stunt casting like this before. They've usually like drawn from, I don't know, like the fields of like just British thespians and like
Yeah.
from the theater and like character actors.
Right, very British. They're just British.
Very British, right? Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So this was like an American, and it was like a stunt role to like be like Johnny Depp.
Right, like the one time they could have truly done like a big stunt cast in a Harry Potter movie is in Chamber of Secrets, where you have Gilderoy Lockhart, who's like a celebrity.
Oh,
and
yeah.
their stunt cast was still just Kenneth Branagh. Like that's as crazy as they got.
Yeah, they're like, well, I mean, but we don't know what it was like for people in the UK. Like as Americans, we're like, oh, okay.
If we have any UK listeners out there, let us know
Karina,
your reaction to
Gilderoy Lockhart. Karina,
casting.
call in.
But from
Our
this
phones are
side,
open.
from this side of the pond, we didn't feel much about Kenneth Branagh. So this Johnny Depp casting obviously is troublesome, not only because he's been sleepwalking his way through films for the last decade. Ever since he got his first Oscar nomination for Jack Sparrow, he was.
Oh, I literally hit the mic with my face because I'm doing this really cool thing. Maybe I'll post a photo of it. I was so shocked at what you just said. One, you're just like throwing shade. Like Johnny Depp, I have issues with, but I was a fan. I will say that. He was nominated for an Oscar for Captain Jack Sparrow.
Yeah, 2003. I guess for the 2004 Oscars. This is his first Oscar nomination. Yeah. I mean, he deserved it.
I mean, he was incredible. But I'm just saying now it's gone on to become this like really dumb thing.
Right.
Whereas
I mean,
like the first one was great. I'm sorry. It was good.
Right, but there's no more layers to be found there. And also, like, he's not looking for any more layers. He's looking for more paychecks because he
abuses his wife. I didn't mean the laugh. We're not like laughing at that, but it's these like issues of like Brendan Fraser has been doing all this like weird stuff because like paying the alimony, like owes a lot to his ex-wife. Not saying that Brendan Fraser, I have no idea if he like abuses his wife or ex-wife, but Johnny Depp is looking for a paycheck.
He is. So the director of Harry Potter, David Yates, he directed the last 4 Harry Potter movies, and then has also directed Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them, and is directing The Crimes of Grindelwald. Great name. And so he first said like the casting of Johnny Depp is a dead issue. Like we're fine with it, basically. And this is following
I just don't
Amber
get that.
Heard's divorce from Johnny Depp.
I also don't get that it's a like I just don't understand that phrasing of it.
Right. It's a very weird phrase. But he's basically like, no one needs to complain about Johnny Depp being cast in this movie. Like, even though his ex-wife accused him of abuse, like posted photos of having blue and black eyes, like posted photos of Johnny Depp, like verbally assaulting her.
Posted
her
text
videos,
messages, like all this stuff where it's like clear.
Anyway, so JK Rowling.
And also got an undisclosed amount of money that or I guess we know is like $7 million that she donated.
Right, donated to charity. She didn't want his money. So JK Rowling on her site, jkrowling.com, wrote, for me personally, the inability to speak openly to fans about this issue has been difficult, frustrating, and at times painful. However, the agreements that have been put in place to protect the privacy of 2 people, both of whom have expressed a desire to get on with their lives, must be respected. Based on our understanding of the circumstances, the filmmakers and I are not only comfortable sticking with our original casting, but genuinely happy to have Johnny playing a major character in the movies. I loved writing the first 2 screenplays and can't wait for fans to see The Crimes of Grindelwald. I accept that there will be those who are not satisfied with our choice of actor in the title role. However, conscience isn't governable by committee. Within the fictional world and outside of it, we all have to do what we believe to be the right thing. So I guess I am one of those people who's not satisfied with this response or with this choice. Another person not satisfied with this response or with this choice is Miss Amber Heard, who followed up on Twitter and said, for the record, this was our full joint statement. To pick and choose certain lines and quote them out of context is not right. Women stay strong. And so she's referring to J.K. Rowling's paraphrasing, saying that she wants to just get on with her life.
Right.
So then she tweeted her full statement, which was, Our relationship was intensely passionate and at times volatile, but always bound by love. Neither party has made false accusations for financial gains. There was never an intent of physical or emotional harm. Amber wishes the best for Johnny in the future. Amber will be donating financial proceeds from the divorce to a charity. What I also think is just like shocking here is the line, neither party has made false accusations for financial gains.
It's saying that what she said is true.
Right.
But also that like she would just make those claims for money. Because that's what his side was saying.
Right.
Like his team was being like, she just wants money.
Right. And she donated all the money that she got from this divorce settlement to charity.
Yeah.
And also the phrasing, there was never an intent of physical or emotional harm, is not saying that there wasn't physical or emotional harm.
It's a very smart, I think, statement.
Like a smartly worded statement.
Yeah.
It's a very drafted by like a team of really good lawyers statement.
Right, but I'm saying is that for Amber, who's like, because she did all this stuff in court, she's likely not allowed to speak too much of it. For anyone reading it with a brain, you can read between the lines and is like, okay, so what she said was true. Johnny didn't mean to hurt her, but by all accounts, he did hurt her.
Right, exactly. Anyway, so JK Rowling is aware of this statement because she's paraphrasing it in her statement and still is like, hunky-dory, we're so happy to have Johnny working on this family film.
But so the part that confuses me is that when you started reading the top of JK's statement, was that it almost seems like she's about ready to say, this is out of my control. I didn't want him in this role. But then she pivots and is like, but you know what? This is a committee and we are fine going to sleep at night with it. Like she...
Right. She is owning the decision.
She's owning the decision, saying how happy she is with it. Which, this is really the thing, like when I thought of JK and you bringing her to the table, is I was like, I remember that she... Just the fact that he's even in one of her movies when she has so much creative control over this franchise.
Right.
Is disturbing.
So I think that really brings me...
I would have preferred... Sorry.
No, go
Hugh
ahead.
Dancy.
Same. I
Like,
also would have preferred Hugh Grant.
Wait, Hugh Dancy. Oh my God, I meant Hugh Grant. I'm so sorry. I said Hugh Dancy.
I mean, Hugh Grant would have been...
Hugh.
that would have been a happy stunt cast surprise.
But also, like, he's older. Like, he'd be good as, like, Grindelwald and, like...
Right. Well, I mean, and so he's playing opposite Jude Law as younger Dumbledore.
Oh, so maybe he's a little too old then. But he...
I think Johnny Depp looks older than Hugh Grant.
I'm just saying it's like, keep it British. Like,
physically.
Keep it British.
Keep it... I mean, honestly, as a child, this is, like, a personal reason why I'm so frustrated is because I was like, I look like Harry Potter. I have like green eyes and brown hair and a scar from a chicken pox in the middle of my forehead. Like I should get to play Harry Potter. Like, why does Daniel Radcliffe get to play Harry Potter? He has blue eyes, not green eyes, and the canon character has green eyes. Anyway, so I had like a lot of frustration because it's like
the only good gay boy. What was that article?
the best little gay boy in the world, best little boy in the world. That's me, and I wanted to play Harry, and I couldn't because I can't act, and also I'm not British.
Right.
Not that Daniel Radcliffe could act in the first movie. Like, no child actors acting. They were, like, mostly just you cast for their own personalities, which I probably didn't have the right personality either because I have a bad one. But
case in point.
Me complaining right here. But anyway, that's besides the point, except, like, Johnny Depp is an American actor playing a British character in a British series that's never once cast an American
and
in
again,
a non-American
it goes back
role
to
before.
it's like, why him?
Right. It doesn't make any... It's like, people are already going to see this movie. You don't need Johnny Depp's star power. The star power is the Wizarding World of Harry Potter. You don't need to cast...
But I will say, the shock got me. I was like, it worked for me, but I would have loved if it was Hugh Grant.
It also, though, like...
He's also the only British actor I know.
Now it's going to be... Hugh Dancy. Is Hugh Dancy British? I think he is.
Is he? He has a name that screams...
So British.
Like, if he's not...
He should consider changing nationalities. Yeah. Just consider it, Hugh. Okay, so that's her first offense. Oh, I never said the litany of offenses, but that's her first offense, is casting Johnny Depp in this movie and then wholeheartedly standing behind that decision. My second issue with JK Rowling is her revisionist history of her own text.
Okay.
So she wrote 7 books set in the 90s.
Right.
In the Wizarding World of Harry Potter.
Right.
About Harry Potter. And nowhere in that actual text did she tell us that Dumbledore was gay. But then after the books come out, so it's been like a decade since she said this. I think it was in 2007 or 2008.
Oh my god.
That she said, "Oh, I've always considered, like, why didn't he have a love interest?" And, "Oh, well, I always considered him to be gay. He had his one true love in life, and that was Grindelwald, and, like, never loved again after that," which is, one, like, not supported by the text. So it's just, like, she could have put that in
Here's
writing.
my question. Since this announcement, have you reread Harry Potter?
Yes.
Okay, that's what I just wanted to know, to confirm that, like, you have studied the text post.
I mean, but also, like, I think this is the bigger frustration I have with JK Rowling is, like, if I want, like, minority representation in her work, like, beyond, like, I think there are, like, 2 characters coded as, like, Indian and 2 black characters, and Lee Jordan is in there, like, Dean and Seamus, or Dean is black,
Something Patel,
and then the Patel twins.
Yeah, Patel twins.
Anyway, so, like, there are a few instances where there's, like, a non-white character in Harry Potter, and, like, Kingsley in the Ministry of Magic, but there's not an instance where there's, like, a gay character in these books. And, like, by telling me that Dumbledore is gay after the fact and, like, creating this, like, Tim Gunn narrative around him that he, like, had one great love and then never loved again, is, like, this, like, sage old wise man,
Like, sad, lonely gay man.
yeah, is so depressing, like, such a sad reading. And, like, that's the only gay character you imagine for your whole world was one old gay man who never found love again, or, like, never even, like, explored his sexuality after one time.
And then in turn, though, the same argument could be that he's also the greatest wizard of all time, and he's gay.
Right,
but not explicitly gay.
So, and someone tweeted at JK Rowling and was like, "Oh, I've never seen Dumbledore as gay. Like, how do you say that?" And she's like, "Oh, maybe that's because gay people just look like people." And that's not true. I mean, obviously I'm, like, kind of joking, but also, like, there are things about being gay that shape your character and your worldview, and to just, like, switch between the sexualities of a character and then say, like, nothing else changes about them except that, like, now they're gay.
Right.
I just, like, I think that's such, like, an ahistorical reading of, I don't know, like, a series set in the 90s. And my frustration here is, like, compounded. I'm watching the new American Crime Story, the assassination of Gianni Versace, which takes place at the same time period. And it's just like, holy hell, were the 90s, even in the United States, like, a nightmarish landscape to exist as a gay man. Not that they're hunky-dory now, but, like...
So to counter your, like, sad narrative of Dumbledore, I want to bring up the best little gay boy. That, couldn't you read Dumbledore as the best little gay boy?
Yeah, absolutely. But I also think that for the character to, like, have use, like, if that was part of the actual text,
right,
and it's not just like we've been queering characters as, like, society, and especially as gay man, like, looking for any hints of a queer subtext in popular fiction and works for our entire lives, right? Like Abraham Lincoln. I mean, like, there's just, like, countless films and movies where characters are, like, coded as gay, like Jafar in Aladdin or Scar in The Lion King.
Right, but they're never.
And they're also villains in both those cases.
Right.
So, like, Ursula is based on a drag queen, like, obviously is, like, seen as, like, queer character in some way. But, like, none of it's explicit, and it's like, okay, like, that also seems, there's, like, something homophobic about, like, using, like, the traits of homosexuality in a character without, like, also giving them a romantic life at all.
Right.
Like, we've seen plenty of gay people without a romantic life. We don't need more of these, like, characters
who are, like, asexual. But it's like, why did... I'm just still confused why Dumbledore's love life needed to even be addressed. How did this even come up?
Because someone asked, like, why he didn't ever have
a love interest
in the books.
You just read this.
Anyway, right, like, the story's about Harry, and, like, Dumbledore is a supporting character to Harry.
Right.
And, like, really, he only becomes, like, a main character in the 7th book. Like, or his backstory becomes really highlighted. but also like
Which
right,
could have
we're
been the
delving
chance
into
where-
his backstory and like into his relationship with Grindelwald.
And like his
And, like-
messed up relationship with his sister and his family. So
Right,
it's like
like-
maybe that could have been explored.
There's just space there to
Yeah, there
explore
was
it.
space.
And a reason to. And also, and I guess like coming back around to Fantastic Beasts, like if we're gonna see these two characters in their younger years, like what's more interesting than two people who are nemesis who are also former lovers and like are fighting on like two sides of a great war?
Right.
Like there's just so much good character work to dig into, like just character motivation to dig into.
Are they going to, like, how is this going to be addressed in the new movies?
So there's been a bit of discussion around this. The director, again, David Yates, said that it wouldn't be explicitly called out in at least the most recent movie or the most upcoming movie, The Crimes of Grindelwald, The Curse of Grindelwald.
How does it not come out?
And so JK Rowling said in response to the screenplay, I can't tell you everything I would like to say because this is obviously a 5-part story, so there's lots to unpack in that relationship. You will see Dumbledore as a younger man and a quite troubled man. He wasn't always the sage. We'll see him at that formative period of his life. As far as his sexuality is concerned, watch this space. We've been watching this space. Like, I think it's really frustrating as a gay man to look at this because you also already understand why they're not making Dumbledore gay, and it's because they want to
Financial
sell
reasons.
it overseas and think that they'll have to re-edit it to get rid of the gay character if they put them in there.
But it's also,
Or even in the United States, like that
don't
it
you
could
even
cause.
think though? It's like people are going to see this movie regardless. People are, if they boycott it, they're still going to. People are still going to see it. Like, there's no way this movie's going to lose money.
Right. I think, right, you're spot on. And so along these lines, so in 2017, the Beauty and the Beast movie remake with Emma Watson
yeah.
came out, and Bill Condon, who's a gay man and was the director, said there was an exclusively gay movement in the film, and it turns out it's all about LeFou.
Josh Gad's character.
Yeah, Josh Gad's character, who is like a sycophantic, just like slave to Gaston. And so in the film at the end, he like sees another man and they dance like a waltz together for like 3 turns. And that's our exclusively gay moment. And like there was a bit of a boycott here. Like this girl from my high school, Beth Ann Sowers, was like, I'm not going to take my child to see this because it's disgusting or something. It's like, also, girl, you had like tons of gay friends in high school. Like, what
Right.
happened to you in the year since I've seen you?
Right.
Something bad happened to you.
Yeah.
But also like, what what
people are so-
bad thing are your children
But I
your
think
children to
also
see?
we also have to remember and put this in context of the media through which people are consuming. She might just be getting this from Fox News, where it's like someone is blowing someone on screen, like something outrageous that is like, and I'm not forgiving it or anything, but I'm just saying is that like these things always get blown out of proportion. But nobody was like, I mean, don't quote me on the numbers here, but nobody was like, wow, Beauty and the Beast was unsuccessful.
Beauty and the Beast until Star Wars The Last Jedi came out was the highest grossing film of 2017. It made over $500 million in the United States alone.
See, so
what are we hedging for here? This is
Yeah.
like a liberal like minefield because I feel like everyone sees Hollywood films as like a liberal product, but they're always being created for like this committee that includes like 50% of Fox News watchers. I'm like, well, what's Fox News going to say about it? It's like, who gives a fuck what Fox News is going to say about it? They're
Right.
just going to hate it anyways.
Well, that's the funny thing about the liberal Hollywood machine is that it's always serving this Fox News watching. So it's always like it may be like liberal leaning, but it's safe enough for these people that they'll still spend their dollars there.
Right. And it's also assumed that like if you give gay people like 30 seconds of queer baiting, that will be like, we'll show up for it and we'll watch it. Because we're like so desperate to see any form of representation on screen. And it's just frankly depressing. And right now is a chance with a character who has been canonically made gay to be a gay leading actor in a major Hollywood film.
Right.
And said the response is, oh, it's not going to be explicit, but like fans know that these two have like a deep history together. It's
Right.
like,
So
why are you making this movie if we already know everything that happens in their
Right.
history?
So my question is, well, one, the obvious point here is that if it was a heterosexual, like cisgender couple, and it was about their past and they were dueling, there would obviously be, it'd be heavily referenced. It'd be like, well, you know,
Right.
and they definitely hook up in it. Like they just would.
Right. So JK Rowling then also tweeted a gif of Little Yachty hitting a mute button, which is an interesting choice. And she said, being sent abuse about an interview that didn't involve me. So talking about David Yates' interview around this topic. About a screenplay I wrote, but which none of the angry people have read, which is part of a 5-movie series. It's only this is only one installment in. Is obviously lots of fun, but you know it's even more fun
Hitting the mute button.
hitting the mute button. So this is, in my mind, another Kate Winslet moment.
Yeah.
Where
British
it's someone,
women.
it's just vulgar to talk about, but it's like people know what kind of questions they're going to get and also created the landscape in which these questions can be asked, and then are offended that people are upset that a character that's supposed to be a gay character that you've made gay post fact and made a big deal about it, and then are like going back on your word that, oh, this is a canonically gay character now, but I'm not going to show him as a gay man, even though this is the time period in which I said he was gay.
Here's my other point, because I also am having, you know, you're going after JK, which the things you're bringing to the table are valid. I'm a fan of hers, and I love a lot of her work on Twitter, when she goes after people, and is like recently with the high school shooting in Florida, she went after someone who was like saying that they're like, my friend's in Europe. She's like, wow, nice try of like trying to create a fake European friend, like no European would say that, yada yada. I think with these Twitter responses, it's a little hard because I know sometimes I'll tweet things or like I'll go to Twitter when I'm just like, oh, like with all the shooting stuff, I'm like, I hate the NRA so much. It's a terrorist organization, and I hate all these people that are sending their thoughts and prayers and not doing anything about it. And so it's like you go to there angry. And so with this, I do get her point of saying we haven't read the script. It's like people getting upset with Beauty and the Beast when they didn't, when it's like, oh wow, there's a person that's gay. And so my point is that maybe this was like, she was like, oh, you guys haven't even read it. You haven't even read it, so how can you be upset that he's not getting representation? And to her point, I mean, she could have said it better. Sure, maybe I hope that we do see this love story and like we do get their back history. But to her point that it's 1 in 5, that maybe it's like, did you want her maybe to say like, I'm just saying is that she's not denying that it will happen. She's just saying is like, don't attack me for this other guy's interview. Why me as a female am set to answer for this director?
No, that's fair. I understand your pushback there, and I agree with a lot of what you're saying. I think my response here is there's sort of this approach by both David Yates and J.K. Rowling then that says that, like, it should be a surprise that we see Dumbledore as gay in a later installment. Like, they want to hold back that surprise. And what you were saying earlier about, like, if we were seeing a film about, like, a man and a woman who, like, in the past had this, like, tumultuous relationship and, like, then ended up as, like, nemesis, we wouldn't be, like, hedging around whether or not, like, we would see their relationship.
Right.
Like, it wouldn't be this sort of, like, cat and mouse, I don't know, like,
but I'm even thinking
a little
about
hint
that.
of it here, but you can't catch me, you can't catch it, but, like, maybe I'll drop it.
Could be the reveal, you know?
I mean, I'm open to giving the benefit of the doubt, 'cause I'm obviously going to see this movie. I've seen every Harry Potter movie in theaters, read all the books, but I don't think that this is, like, the only...
It's not promising is what you're saying.
It's not, right, it's not promising, and I guess I would just, like, go a little bit further here and say, like, J.K. Rowling's, like, approach to other canonically, like, challenging statements after the books have come out, like, only highlighted that, like, she doesn't actually care about this representation. She's just, like, throwing out new details.
Right.
So, like...
So do you think it's as she's become more... It's like she's trying to make it a didactic process where it's like, oh, this was already in there. But it wasn't.
Yeah,
like,
I think...
she's like, oh, this was there, but I didn't realize I was doing it at the time. But it's not, which I feel like goes into what your next...
Right, I mean...
final litany and kind of this. Or am I getting ahead of myself? Like in terms
So
of
I think-
representation of being like,
Right. I think so. There's to just finish out this like representation idea. There's this idea about plastic representation. So this is an idea from an academic named Kristen Walker, and her theory is really around race and like having more racial representation on screen. But that plastic representation is basically like changing out a white Ken doll for a black Ken doll and saying that you've depicted a black character on screen now instead of just like making a black person play a character that's for all intents and purposes white.
right.
So she's saying it's like it becomes an empirical system of box checking. It's a mode of representation that offers the feel of progress, but actually cedes more ground than it gains for audiences of color. So now executives can point and say like, oh no, we do have movies about black people. Like, I don't know, who's Iron Man's compatriot? War Machine is played by Don Cheadle. Like, he's a black character.
I didn't even know that. I didn't even know Don Cheadle was part of that universe.
He's only in the Iron Man movies. He's not in the Avengers movies, as far as I remember. But or like Anthony Mackie playing the Falcon is like, oh, he's a black character. Like, we have black superheroes, but like they both feel like characters that could easily be swapped in with a white man, and like nothing about the characters.
A black history,
right?
Essentially,
right, and that's what she's
come
talking
out of
about
a
here.
vacuum.
So like the rationale for solely demanding plastic representation is understandable as a sanity preserving tactic, but that can also build esteem and confidence, but it's not nearly enough. So she's saying like the hashtag representation matters, like parents posting photos of their kids dressed up as black characters from like entertainment,
right?
And saying representation matters is like, that's great, and it can build esteem and confidence and like is a useful thing, but like saying that's the end game is like preventing actual progress. Basically, like, it's not enough to just demand for plastic representation. I think all JK Rowling is giving us so far here is like an ounce of plastic representation. So,
but as an afterthought too,
right?
Because
right,
it's
exactly.
not even like casually mentions that he's gay, or it's brought up, or like, because he's like a million years old,
right?
And he's only had one love interest.
One love interest, right? Like we don't see, and we don't have to see. I guess like you were saying earlier, we don't have to see Dumbledore living as a gay man in the Harry Potter novels,
right? Because like it could
because
make sense
he's not the main character.
Yeah. And also, like, we don't know the love lives of Professor McGonagall, like the other people in his lives.
Right. So it's understandable, but if we're going to hear about it and like look at a time period in which he is interacting with his former lover, as younger men, like, and you're casting Jude Law.
Yeah,
like,
he'd be all over that.
Jude Law, the same man who was in The Talented Mr. Ripley, Jude Law, and you're giving me this meaty gay character for Jude Law to like toy with or play with, and then you're not, I don't know, letting him like just melt into the role. Here's
my question. So am I getting confused? The Crimes of Grindelwald are him at a later age, and then they're going back in time?
I think,
don't even know yet, because Jude Law's a bit old. That's why
I think it's like 40s or 50s.
Or are they going to like stay the same age because they're wizards? But wizards do age.
Well, yeah, and
just at a slower
so like
rate.
Colin Farrell is in his 40s.
But he's never looked better. He honestly has never looked better.
He's never looked bad, but he's never looked better.
Well,
and Alexander with the blonde hair. You are correct.
Or Lobster.
Oh, yeah.
But that was like purposeful.
Intentional, right? Yeah. Anyway, so what I'm thinking here really is about not only gay Dumbledore, but also like Black Hermione, like JK Rowling being like, oh, actually, like nowhere in the text does it say that Hermione is white. Like, I applaud this like colorblind casting decision, which is again plastic representation. Like,
and
just
putting
up.
To do with her though. It has nothing to do with her. It's the director of the play.
Director of the play made the decision, and also if you look closely at the text, if we're reading this like it's a biblical text, there are moments where Hermione is explicitly referenced as a white character. So for JK Rowling to be like, not only like does this interpretation work with my world, but actually it is my world, like this was my idea first,
right,
is what she's saying, and she's wrong.
For any character who is black and you're gonna have multiple discussions about their hair, There's nothing in the description about Hermione's hair. If we're going to go with hair, because
Right.
that's a big part of Hermione in the descriptor. There's nothing about that says
Black hair.
black hair.
That's curly girl,
It's
white
just
girl
like,
hair.
I think of this just popped in my head about the Hunger Games and how Rue was always black.
Always black.
And she gave so many context clues about the district where Rue is from, is obviously the Deep South.
Right.
The people of color, their songs, like it obviously sounds very much of like the slave fields, like plantations.
Right.
And when people had this outrage, they were able to be like, Rue's always been black. Like that's a point of being like, it was actually always in the text.
Right.
But you and your own personal prejudice were like, she can't be black.
Right. You didn't read a single character in that book is black unless you like thought someone villainous was black. Like you probably thought like President Snow was a black man because you just hate black people.
And so it's just so, I think that's someone who handled it very well.
Right.
And handled it in a very smart way. Is it was like, no, Rue was always black. I just never said she was black because I gave you so many clues that she was black, and I didn't need to go out of my way to be like, oh yeah, by the way, Rue's black.
Rue, comma, a young black girl. It's
Yeah,
like
it was
everything.
like,
every
it's not
descriptor of her in that
necessary.
book told me that she was black. Right.
And here's
you're
the
right.
thing: is that like Hermione is white.
Hermione is a white girl who's the daughter of middle class dentist parents. Like
Right.
run of the mill, boring white people. Like every
It was
descriptor
like
about her
vanilla.
life is about white British, like middle class people.
Right. There's nothing that's like. So I think with that though too, with this like colorblind and lack of representation the plastic representation, how do you think it fares with her politics? Because like she is seemingly progressive and outspoken, but is this a case of she can't step away from her own privilege or recognize her privilege? I mean, is that going too far, or just that she can't recognize that her work, she didn't consider these things, and instead of just being like looking at it, being 10 years away, being like, oh, you know, at the time, I'm going to be honest, like I didn't see the world that way, or like I didn't think
see the world that way,
representation mattered,
or like I couldn't get away with making those characters gay in the 90s. Like honestly, her saying that to me would mean so much more. Being like, Scholastic wouldn't let me put a gay character in a children's or like a children or young adults book then.
But also being bold enough to be like and recognize her own privilege of being like, I didn't think about having any of the characters gay.
But she does. That's
You
the
know,
thing.
like-
She's not like. There's no part of her response here that ever is
Sincere.
like not sincere, but that's never like owning up to like a failure of representation in her work. And instead, it's like, oh, of course that could like be part of my world. Like my world's great. That's what's frustrating.
But
is
I
that
think
the approach isn't like apologetic in any way. I think I can like sort of put a pin in it. Because obviously like I loved the world of Harry Potter growing up, and I think I'm like struggling more with it as an adult to get excited about these new movies.
Yeah.
And that's what's really like got me in this questioning mode that I was like probably very defensive previously, because it's like, I love Harry Potter. It's great. It's like, there's nothing wrong with it. Like, I don't want criticism of this thing that I love. And I'm like, oh, I'm not feeling in love with what's happened since. So first, I guess like the last sort of litany of offense thing is that she's sort of doubled down on, in my mind, being wrong, rather than like made strides to
make
improvements or like sound apologetic, like you were saying, like saying like, oh, these characters maybe weren't gay, but like looking back at it, I wish I had written them that way.
Right. And I think that's what I'm trying to get at. She created this world where she only saw it within her own experience, and a lot of people were able to put themselves in the characters.
Right, or pick up on subtext that she maybe didn't even intend as subtext, but were
Yeah,
there.
exactly.
But so with the Fantastic Beasts movie, we haven't seen it. That's fine. That's a caveat. It doesn't seem like we're gonna get a gay Dumbledore there. Hopefully we will at some point in this 5-movie series. But the other thing I want to bring up is The Cursed Child, which I haven't had a chance to see because it hasn't come to New York yet, and I have never been to London.
Right.
But in the play, the two main characters, which are Albus and Scorpius, are Albus Severus and Scorpius, really beautifully named characters, who have like a queer romance through the novel. They like have like a lot of like very well. That's because once again it's
not in the it's a subtext
well
thing,
it's more like a it's sort of like a reverse at the end where it's like, just kidding, they're not gay. They actually have girlfriends now.
Wait, what?
Yeah. But like all through the novel up until that point or through the play, there's like long hugs. There's like just like they like say like I couldn't imagine like life without you. It's like, and like we've already seen how JK Rowling's, and I know she didn't write this play, but she did like
She
sanction this
oversaw it,
story. Like this is canon for her. Anyway, so like we know how she writes male friendship because we got so much of it in the
Right.
Harry Potter
So
novels.
heavy.
And this is not written in that way. Like these characters aren't interacting in the way that her other characters have. They're interacting in a way that seems gay and romantic. And it's also a chance for her to
Right these wrongs, sort of.
Right
or,
these
like,
wrongs.
Move in the right direction.
And if they're like, this is also because it is theater, it's like a different space than like even like Hollywood film.
Right.
Where like if you have concerns about like the marketability or the sellability of these characters by making them gay, like those same things don't exist when you're talking about Broadway and like London's West End.
Yeah. So I'm just
London's West End as opposed to
confused.
Stuart Strauss West End.
about the way these characters are built, because to me it's like this reading of like this sad, like how gay love stories are always sad,
Right. It seems honestly
and that they had to be with women in the end to like survive, and they're like something dumb, like it's so depressing, and it's like, is that the intent? Is that what
really
it
hope
is?
that's
Is
not the
that
intent.
it's like,
But it honestly, did you have to read A Simple Piece in high school?
oh my god, I love that movie. I mean, the movie that it should be a movie.
Yeah, I'm sure it is.
I think it's adapted in something, but it's not. Are you talking about Finn and Jean?
Yeah.
I love that movie. I was like, I'm gonna name my kid Finn.
And then Julia Roberts stole that idea.
Yeah,
from you.
and I was like, I can't.
Oh, speaking of Julia Roberts, real quick, I have to run something by you.
Yeah.
I'm thinking for Halloween that I'm going to be Julia Roberts and I'm going to wear a tank top that says aloe vera.
Oh my god, you have to do that. That's like one of
But
the.
it's like one of those things where it's like I might meet like 2 people that night that know what I'm wearing. I mean,
No,
maybe more
that's
because
so
it's
good.
New York.
Yeah, it's New York. Oh man, that's so good.
But it's
And
like
Patrick
the
will be Danny
easiest.
Motor.
What a treat for Pat. Danny Motor, America's Dreamboat.
He's hot.
I mean, she stole him for a reason. Aloe vera. Anyway, so JK Rowling, obviously, like at the end of the day, I can forgive because like she supports progressive politics. She's outspoken about a lot of the right things. I think her heart is in the right place. I like she gives so much to charity. Like I've respected her for so long.
Yeah.
But I do just like have a hope that there is a actual gay love story in these Fantastic Beasts movies, because like
Right.
they're also not giving us anything really new so far. Like
We
in terms
don't
of
really know anything about it at all.
I mean, the first one was, I've only watched it the one time because I was bored. It wasn't that good.
I watched it on a plane in. It's funny is that it took place in New York, and there were only
nothing's ever
white
felt
people.
less like New York.
Yeah, well, it was like it reminded me of like foreign people making movies about America.
There's also Jazz Age New York, wasn't
Yeah.
it? And
I think so. Well, I watched it on a long plane ride, so wine was involved.
yeah, because they go to like a speakeasy lounge.
Oh, right,
at one
right.
point. And like Jazz Age New York is one of my favorite things to like read about and like watch, like listen to podcasts about and see on film. And it was just such a sad representation.
Yeah, it all
of
felt so
that.
white and dreary. It felt like it was just London. Like it was
Right,
like white and dreary.
It also
White
just
being the
like
people.
it was like, oh, we'll see like what magic is like in the United States. And like nothing about that movie felt like.
I don't think we even met any magical beings in there that were American outside of Eddie Redmayne, right?
Well, Eddie Redmayne is British.
Right, I'm saying
Newt
outside.
Scamander.
He's only.
Well, and there's whatever their Minister of Magic equivalent is in the United States
Colin
is
Farrell?
is a black woman, and we see her like in passing, and then at the end she like thanks them, and they like come to catch Grindelwald.
Of course, like in America, we can make the president a black woman.
In the 1920s, great. Anyway, so I read this article in the Boston Review that I sent you, which is like another thing that J.K. Rowling's done is there's this character who's maybe mentioned like in one sentence in one of the books called like
I don't
remember this at all, but apparently he's there and his name's Anthony Goldstein. So she's like, yeah, there are Jewish characters. There's Anthony. Like, it's like if you like brought up your one Jewish friend to like prove that you weren't an anti-Semite.
Yeah, they're like, oh no, I love Jewish people.
Like my best friend Anthony Goldstein, who you all remember, he was at my one party that one time.
Remember he was there at the back table.
And then you like find a picture of him and you like zoom in and he's like has his back turned and you're like, that's definitely Anthony. I'd recognize his hair anywhere. Anyway, the author of that is like, why did he have to be invisible? He had to be invisible because the world of Hogwarts is based on like white upper class British boarding school, and like the only way you can play around with world history and not have and like introduce magic and like how it wouldn't change the course of history is if it was also still only owned and controlled by like white Westerners.
Here's my question though about this article, and I sound like such an apologist, and I think it's also just because I'm so confused why religion would exist in this world, and then I'm not completely sold in that her Muggle world is modern day.
Yeah.
Like, so that's the thing that gets me. It's like, I don't know if it exists in this universe, so I don't know like the historical.
I don't know if you have to even like remove it from Earth.
But you know what I mean? So it's like having a Jewish character. How does that come into play how does religion come into play at Hogwarts? So that was my main thing. And in the wizarding world of Harry Potter, where is the time and place for religion? Because I never saw any.
Right. I mean, it's an atheistic wizarding society from like anything represented by the books.
So that is the part that's really getting me. So that's where this is what I'm pushing up against in this whole realm of things is like, I just don't really, that argument to me. And then it's like, well, wouldn't they have done anything about the Holocaust when they've done about anything about the slave trade, when they've done this, that, or the other thing? I'm just so unclear on the world in which it exists. Like, is it in the same timeline that we're living in?
Right. I mean, I think you're pointing out like a big limitation of Harry Potter in general, which is that like the greatest war the world's ever seen, like with Voldemort, takes place only in London and at Hogwarts, and like the rest of the world is not involved even in the final battle, like Beauxbatons and the Durmstrang school.
Right.
Like we don't hear about any. This is still just in Western Europe, and we're still not interacting with them or seeing how this is like going on in the world stage.
Right.
So it's just like there is a very limited scope to this story, even though it seems so large scale. It's really not like a Lord of the Rings type story where it's like the end of the universe or the end of that world where like every single realm is coming together to fight one true evil. It's like literally just like 20 older British people and all the students of this school are fighting. Well,
that's why I honestly like, and I know they were reference of like a school in America or whatever, and like I feel like nowhere else. It was like America and like around Europe. So that to me is also where I'm just like, I don't understand this world. So I'm not gonna like fault if we can go after about representation, saying that you can the plastic representation of course Hermione could be black. Like I totally get those arguments, but this one to me is I don't see religion in this world, and like the whole Voldemort being the worst and blah blah. Like how does that world exist if there's like the slave trade and there's like all these like a nuclear bomb? Like
right. I mean
I just
ultimately like the world building is just not there to point in one direction or the other.
So it's like for me there's other things. Like I just don't this Boston Globe article, I'm like,
yeah, I mean that's like
to me it's just like
that's fair, but then also I guess like the point there is that like within the world of Harry Potter maybe there's no room for anything that's not just plastic representation. Like making Hermione black means that like, okay, so Hermione's family is black but they live in London, and how did they end up in London? Like we can't discuss anything further back in her backstory. Or like even the character of Kingsley is like an African
king, sort of like the way he's described in his dress, he sounds like an African king,
right? And like the way that he's voiced in the movie, like he has like a non-British accent, but like we don't explore like why is Kingsley part of the Ministry of Magic in the UK? Did he move here? Where did he move here from? Like
Right.
what's the magic, like what's the Wizarding World like in his home country? Like you're right that like we're like pressing the boundaries of this story, but I guess I would like to see if we're going to expand the Wizarding World into a wider world in the UK, like they started to do with Fantastic Beasts. That like we even like asked the question like what is Wizarding, like what does it look like in the United States? And I don't think that they answered that question in
Well, here's also my
the first
pushback in
film.
all of this is that they're also going back in time, which I feel like is limiting the scope of representation already, because you're going to run into these other issues of
Right.
like how far are they going back for the Grindelwald story, because they're like 600 to 800 years old. Like are we going that far back?
What?
Like so predating like
Is Dumbledore 800 years? I don't think Dumbledore is 800
or
years
he's
old.
like 600? He's
I think
old.
you're thinking about Yoda. Like I
No, I
honestly
need to look him up.
don't think that Dumbledore like
Dumbledore age.
no, because like what bold. Also, like these books take place in the 90s almost solely because Harry's parents' gravestones have a date on them, which
Right,
dates
also, like,
the
it didn't
story.
have to.
It right.
I'm
I mean,
sorry.
like the story.
150 years old, making him 115 or 116 when he died.
115 years old.
Wait, was about 150 years old. However, on her website, she states that Dumbledore was born in 1881, making him either 115 or 116. Okay, so I'll just edit out this part about him being so.
Dumbledore's about 100 years old.
Wait, so but my point being is, if you're going back in time, like that's still limiting it, like
Right. I mean,
limiting it in the sense of now she's having to answer questions about like
right.
the role of
It's
people of color in
right,
this world
in the United
50s,
States.
in the United States
Before the 50s having a black president.
Yeah, so that's
It's
my
just
thing,
like,
is
okay,
that
so-
I believe it does exist in its own world, and we don't hear anything outside of like 2 major cities.
Yeah.
Like, so that's where I'm like, I'm not. This is where I'll be more interested to see is when, if she is situating this in our timeline, not necessarily in our universe, but if we're looking at 1881 when Dumbledore was born, and we're gonna like jump ahead with these like Potter, Weasley kids, their world should be more inclusive, and their world should be have characters with richer histories and backgrounds that maybe answer some of these questions.
In The Cursed Child.
In The Cursed Child, or whatever comes after The Cursed Child. Because, like, going back in time complicates it even more. Unless it's existing outside of this world, then it's like then you have all these other questions.
Yeah, I think the weirdest thing that ever happened to Harry Potter is that they decided to try to put a timeline on it, because then it like makes it interact with that time period in actual history.
Right.
So like when I was reading the Harry Potter books until like I guess that's the 7th book where he visits his parents' gravestone and he sees like when they were born, when they died, and that they were like 30 years old.
Yeah.
Very, very young. Anyway, like until then we don't have any sense of when it's intended to take place, and like there's so much technology that's like not included in Harry Potter because it destroys the story. So like
Right.
cell
So
phones don't exist.
That's my point of being like, I'm having a hard time trying to pin like these issues. And also then it's like, well, if it doesn't exist in our time, then why aren't, and it doesn't exist in our universe, why isn't there more diversity?
Yeah.
Because if it is replicating these like upper class boarding schools in the UK, it is going to look very white.
Right.
And there's going to be a sprinkling of people with different backgrounds. So that's my only thing of like, I don't really get it. And it's also hard because she's not American, because if she was American, I feel like I have much more criticisms, because like understanding American history and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know like her worldview, or if it's one of these things of being like, I'm not racist until like a black person or like an Indian family moves on my street, like something like that, where it's like, oh my God, I love those people. And then it's like those neighbors, you know,
Right. Not in my backyard.
Yeah.
People.
So it's hard because I don't really understand the racial politics in the UK. So it's hard for me to be
or
like
JK Rowling's personal
Right.
politics. Anyway, I think we've like gone down a real rabbit hole here about Harry Potter.
Because we're like, we're literally pushing the bounds of the universe and trying to have our worldview in this worldview, and being like, and also criticizing her for.
Well, I mean, something that she has waded into by her own volition.
Right. And it's like, well, once you start saying that, well, Dumbledore was gay the whole time, and that, oh, Hermione could be black, or blah, blah, it's like, well, then
right, then
why
you
didn't
need
you
to
write them
explain
that
it
way?
further about like what choices you made that kept them from being canonically gay or black.
Or like, what does being black mean in the Wizarding World of Harry Potter?
Right.
Is it simply just a skin color? Like, it doesn't have a history of like,
right, or like you're not
slavery is why, you know,
and
or
she
like,
did say something about this, which is basically like, oh, it's all about blood status. So like you're like pure blood or half blood or mud blood or, you know, whatever. And like those are the only slurs in the Wizarding world, which is like, I mean, it just like, it doesn't need to hold up to this much scrutiny because at the end, like it is like a children's fantasy novel series, but I don't like JK Rowling, like, honestly, sometimes just like says too much when
maybe,
like,
and maybe that's what it is that she's given us too much to play with, that we are able to be like poke holes in like what she's saying.
Right.
And because she is so progressive and outspoken on different issues in politics, that we're like, okay, but if you're being this outspoken, you don't have to, you could also just be like, you know what, in the 90s, I didn't think about Dumbledore being gay, and I should have. That was like a fault on my own limited worldview or just assumptions. Yada,
or publisher demands.
right, exactly.
Like, you would not shock me if you told me that
Scholastic was like, hell no.
Right. They're like, how about we make this character not have sex with a man right here?
Or
I mean, no one has
she
sex in Harry
could've-
Potter, but
she could have done it more like like if it was the intention of him to be gay, it's like it could have been in the subtext of being like mentioning a man or something, and like nobody really has sexual desires except in one book of Harry Potter.
oh, and Harry gets hard for Cho.
Yeah, and he's like and he's like all
Ew,
like moody
it's
and
so
emo.
gross.
But no
Honestly,
one has
like,
sex. They don't need to.
Same.
They just touch wands. It's like
feel the vibration. In my research for this, I discovered by typing in Harry Potter characters gay that Dumbledore is considered a gay character by Google, and then the second character that's considered gay is Charlie Weasley. But then in looking
the
at
dragon one?
the dragon one, but then in looking at Charlie Weasley, what J.K.
Perseus.
Rowling actually said about him was, like, someone asked if he was gay, and she goes, oh, I don't think so, but he was honestly just like way more interested in dragons than he was women. And so now he's considered by a lot of people an
No.
asexual, like he's considered ace, and like people want to like protect his status as an ace character and not read him in any other
I think
queer light. Percy's gay.
Percy's so gay, and it's like he's a gay Republican.
Yeah.
Percy's a gay Republican.
Percy is the Chadwick Moore of the Harry Potter
Of the
Monopoly
Weasley
money
family.
series. Yeah, Percy Weasley is like the worst gay character, but
he is.
he's
a
one of
villain.
us. He's a gay villain.
So all right. So before
Also,
I
Remus Lupin is gay. Sirius Black is
And
gay,
Tonks.
and Tonks is genderqueer.
woo, but again, they really like muzzle that, or not put them, like they're just like, oh
no,
wait, we gave way too much.
They wrote Remus Lupin as an AIDS allegory. His werewolfism is an AIDS allegory until it's not, and he and Sirius sent Harry a joint Christmas present. But then in the next
many
book,
of that stuff was, I was just like, oh okay, like
right, like maybe they had to pull funds. And you look back at it, it's like, oh,
No,
that's
I was
they're
just like-
gay.
yeah, I kind of
And then it's like, and Tonks is like, don't call me by my first name. It's not I'm not Nymphadora, because she thinks it's like too femme. And then Remus and her get together. They have a baby, and all they care about is their little baby Teddy. And all she cares about is letting him call her Dora. After this whole life, we meet her like.
But she also could be genderqueer and like just loves him. You know what I mean? Like we're not even going into like her.
Oh, but then
sexual
J.K. Rowling, then people try to like give like a positive sort of work to this, to be like, okay, well,
Yeah.
like maybe he did, like she's genderqueer and was like comfortable on a spectrum, and maybe
Right.
Remus is bisexual. And then J.K. Rowling, in like a later piece of work maybe on Pottermore, wrote about young Remus, and in it says like he never had a love in his life before Tonks, so like eliminating the possibility that he and Sirius had a like romantic relationship. Which no one told Gary Oldman that when he was making his acting choices in The Prisoner of Azkaban, because when they see each other,
Yeah,
it is so romantic. It's like the most romantic moment in any of the Harry Potter books or in the movies. Yeah,
I don't know.
Like, the reunion is electric.
But do you have any acts of repentance for yourself or for JK?
Acts of repentance for myself. No, I'm perfect. No, I don't know if I do. Except that I could explore, if I'm interested in finding a fantasy series that actually like incorporates the things I'm talking about. Like, I know The Magicians, like that book series.
Oh, it's a book series.
It's a book series originally. And shout out to Sarah Garrison, because she's tried to get me to read these books and watch the show like a million times. And I've said no. And then I tried to watch the show and I thought it was a little too
I want to read
like
the books
sloppily
now.
paced. But I could be wrong. They tell me I'm wrong. But those books were partially written in reaction to Harry Potter, because the author was so frustrated by like the lack of approach to sexuality or like romance and sex in general at like a boarding school of like hormonal teens.
Right.
It was just
with
like
magical powers.
Right. It's like they don't take advantage of it, or like they don't drink. They don't like, I don't know, do anything to like indulge with like the magic at all in like bad ways, except like, you know, learning killing curses.
Oh, I'm curious. Now I think I want to do that too. I want to read it.
So I could maybe read that and just see like if it affects how I look back at Harry Potter and think about like those boundaries we're talking about. Like, can a magical world encompass more than just like, I don't know, white Christian Anglo-Saxon sort of history? Right. And for JK Rowling, the acts of repentance would be to make The Crimes of Grindelwald a big, sexy, gay festival. Woo! I want to see gay guys kissing and then getting in a fight. I want it to look like me in college when I'm real drunk.
Oh, it might. Jude Law.
It's going to look like me bald.
I think for me, because I think she's done so much stuff outside of her writing that's really progressive, that I'm like so quick to forgive her, but also just like recognizing the lack of representation is really an issue. But to me, in my mind, I'm literally, all I can get is I'm like, she's a British woman, but I wasn't that kind to Kate Winslet.
It's just a British thing.
So I just need to explore that.
Mm-hmm.
But maybe it's because she is using her platform. I don't know.
She is using her platform in a way that Kate Winslet is not.
It's not, exactly.
Yeah. I mean, she also has a much bigger platform than Kate Winslet.
So that makes sense. But I hope that she does just expand. When she expands the world, she expands the diversity of characters.
Yeah, I hope that she has the chance to play with these characters in a new and interesting way. And I hope that what we get from the Fantastic Beasts trilogy is not just like Voldemort 1.0 with Grindelwald.
Same.
Because that's boring. I've seen a hero's journey so many times. I don't want to see another one.
Okay. Well, do you have anything else?
Make sure you check out V's EP. It's called Start Volume 1, and we will be tweeting a link to it.
Yeah.
And we forgive you. Hope you like Harry Potter, because we just talked about it a lot.
And we hope you rate, review, and subscribe, and tell your friends to do the same. Share it.
And when you tell all your friends, your favorite podcast is ours. This pod was only wishful thinking. I'm singing Taking Back Sunday. I'm really sorry.
And I was like, what? I was like, I don't recognize this Britney Spears song. I was like, bye.
Bye, y'all.